Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? The other day on Twitter, there's a comics publisher. The comics company is called Alternacomics. The publisher, the guy who runs the whole operation, his name is Peter Simeti. I've followed him off and on for a couple of years. I just found him the other day, started watching his stuff again, and he offered to do critiques on Twitter for comic illustrators, amateur guys. Hey, post a finished piece and I'll give you feedback if you want it. And this was, watching this from the outside, it took me back to a couple of different critique groups that I've been in over the years as a writer, where there was a member here and there who just couldn't take the criticism. They wanted to explain why you were getting your opinion wrong of their work. And I kind of smiled and rolled my eyes at it. He got a little bit more heat just because the pieces that people kept sending in were not good. And finally, he's like, this was supposed to be a constructive thing, and it's not like he was roasting them. He was just saying, this right here is not working. This is what you should do instead. Maybe it wasn't anything catastrophic or telling them that they sucked. It was, I look at this piece, here's what's wrong with it, because that's the way that you get better. And people were really sensitive about it. To an extent, you want people to be passionate about their work, and you want that passion even to extend to a point where like them getting negative feedback would hurt their feelings. But you have to develop a thicker skin than that, and you have to take criticism, especially constructive criticism, in the spirit in which it's given. In this case, hey, what am I doing that is not working? Yes, I put a lot of work and a lot of effort into this piece. It obviously didn't come out right because I look at it and I see what I wanted it to be in my head, and somebody else who doesn't see that process sees the end product and it's not translating. What do I have to do to get better? And there are people who hold too much to that passionate internal view of what they think their art looks like. And it's like telling them that one of their kids is ugly, and there's no fix for that. Your kid's just ugly. Ray Bradbury has a quote here, and he's talking more about, I can't remember the exact context of the quote, but obviously it works for writing, but the same thing applies in illustrating. He says, if you hide your ignorance, no one will hit you and you'll never learn. And it's safe to hide your ignorance, but at the same time, unless you kind of expose it tactfully and in a good environment from time to time, where you'll have people being constructive around you, you will remain ignorant. When I was training as a truck driver, I was in a truck for a month with a guy who I walked into this just kind of expecting it to be like, I knew that there were going to be speed bumps, but I knew that I had to succeed at it because I had to get this job. I had to be able to pay for my apartment. I had to be able to pay so that my wife could go to the grocery store and get formula for our newborn son. Like, failing at this was not an option. And I had to surrender, A, my own expectations, and B, my pride, so that I could get rid of the ignorance that might hold me back from doing the job successfully and making the coveted amount of $800 a week in 2013. It's the same principle. It's just with art, you're going to have more of that passion and more of that soul involved. Doing a technical skill like driving a tractor trailer is maybe not as heavily emotional as creating something. But if you want to get good at it, you've got to surrender that pride. You've got to show your ignorance, and you've got to show it to somebody who you know is in a position to correct it. This guy, my trainer, he was looking at a bonus of a few $1,000s, plus his mileage rate went up as a trainer. So if I succeeded and I lasted a couple of months, he'd get that bonus. So he was financially motivated to be an effective critic of my raw driving skills. Here, in this case, you had an accomplished comic books publisher, Peter Simeti, who has run Alternacomics for at least 5 or 6 years. I want to say that I found him right around the same time that I found Zach. The difference is that Peter Simeti started publishing sooner. I think he'd already been in the game. And he's not one of these guys that got into crowdfunding, got a customer base, and just stayed in that niche. You can find his comics in stores. Admittedly, I've never picked up any one of his titles. I've never looked into it and said, okay, here's one that I would want to read. But I am familiar with his work as a publisher. And if I were an illustrator, well, specifically a comics illustrator, a comic artist, and he offered to give me feedback, I would take that feedback. There would be pain involved because I look at my own work and I know that I have limitations as an artist. And there's more than just the technical skill that goes into it. There's composition, there's drafting, there's blocking, there's perspective and angle and all of that stuff. There's a lot that I'm good at. It is crushingly overshadowed by what I'm not good at. And the same goes for anybody who is on my level, who is an indie author. And the hard, cold truth that nobody wants to face, but it is there regardless, is that if you were better than this level, you wouldn't be at this level. You would be selling. People would respond to your work. You're not unknown just because you don't know how to market. Great work transcends that. People talk. There's word of mouth. Independent books break through. Maybe less than we would like them to, but they do. You have to understand the level that you're at as an independent, self-published creator, whether you're writing or whether you're illustrating. The principle is the same. And if you want to get better, you've got to get in the arena, and you've got to take a couple of hits, and it's going to hurt. But you need to set that pride aside and say, okay, obviously I'm not covering my jaw with my offhand. Maybe I'm a righty, but I'm somehow lining up in southpaw, to use a boxing metaphor, okay? And you might not know that until you get hit a few times and you realize, oh, I need to cover this side of my game and do a little bit better over here. That's how it works with anything that you want to get better at. There is a such thing as a destructive critic. Those are the ones that just want to tear crap down. And yeah, by all means, ignore them. They're not there to do you any favors. But that's not what Peter Simeti was doing when he offered qualified criticism. People weren't looking for criticism when they sent their pages in and rejected his suggestions and his observations. They were looking for unqualified praise. And that's no way to do any of this. You've got to understand your limitations. Don't beat yourself up. Don't be your own destructive critic. But like Louis L'Amour says, as a writer, you are never good enough. You never know enough. Why is he telling you that? He's not telling you that to kick you in the nuts. He's telling you that so that you stay hungry for knowledge, for skill, and for experience, and that you gain those things by doing the grind, by doing the hard work. Repetition is one thing, and qualified feedback is another. I'm going to close by saying this. There's been plenty of talk over the last several years, and I was involved in the discussion even on this channel. This is something that came to my mind recently when I tried to watch that Haunted Mansion movie from 2023 that Disney put out just 2 years ago. It's I'll give this thing a try. I got maybe 45 minutes into it, and it was a slog. It was just boring. There were pieces of it here and there that were okay, this part of it's good, this part of it's fine, but it wasn't coming together. And I was chewing on that along with, musing on the larger problems that Disney's slates have had in the last several years. And it's because they weren't fostering an internal environment where people were giving creative, constructive feedback. They obviously, for a while there, became much more preoccupied with ideology and with using their cudgel as a quote-unquote creative company to push for social change and political changes and things to be different in the public sphere. They lost sight of the fact that they were supposed to be a creative company. And when you lose that internal creative environment, then you lose that creative, constructive feedback mechanism that could have told them in the art phase in various ways what wasn't working with not just this Haunted Mansion remake, but several of their movies. They could have looked at it and said, okay, like we're not getting the responses that we want out of viewers. What do we need to be doing differently? Well, the people who could have told them that, the artists who would oppose the mainstream approach to creation of the people inside the studio, they were gone. Artists, real passionate artists, the ones who want to get it right, they will take criticism. Ideologues never will. And if you find yourself in a spot where you will never take criticism about your work, whether you're an illustrator or a writer or a musician, whatever your medium is, then you're standing shoulder to shoulder with the ideologues. And you're never going to learn. You're never going to show your ignorance in a constructive and meaningful way. You might take a couple of hits, but you're never going to learn. You're never going to get better. You're never going to transcend your current level. So, those are some thoughts from Mr. Simeti and from Mr. Bradbury and from Mr. Literate Trucker. Que soy yo. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Drive safe. See you out there.